With your blessings and welcome Faith Harris, who's with us today, a fantastic singer and performer in our community. It's so wonderful to be with you. I'm Penelope Williams, and I wanted to just welcome you and thanks, Aaron, for hosting this and inviting the dialogue between us around the topic of mindfulness and musicianship and self-care. I wanted to offer some introductory comments, and I'll do so beginning now. Author Bell Hooks. She writes, art has to be ready for the weight of your calling. Your heart has to be ready for the weight of your calling. Indeed, it's reflected in these past 2 years of the pandemic and so much change in our social lives, our physical lives politically. We've been undergoing change, an opportunity to retune, to reset, or at least discover what we believe, value, and what we desire for ourselves. Are you resilient? Am I resilient? Can I adapt to changes? For me, as a professional musician, entrepreneur, and advocate for social justice, it's been another revolution, not just an evolution, but a revolution for me professionally, socially, personally, and spiritually. I've asked many questions of myself. What's to me? How do my values transfer to the multiple environments of my life? And you probably too have been questioning some of these things, I would hope. Before I share about my approach to mindfulness, though, I want to include a couple of phrases which I'll offer as concepts such as reaching out, reaching in, breathing out, and breathing in. I find that when I incorporate physical components to the philosophies of mindfulness, it's more likely to become a habit, a way of life, a behavioral change. So let's begin. Let's reach in and breathe in. Breathing consciously allows us to slow down, to ground our thoughts in the present moment, and all the magic happens in the present moment. Breathing more deeply and simply relaxing. It was the drive home from the office that got me, as I knew it was going to be different, a long drive with only my car on the road. All the people had been sent home to stay away from the city. Our pandemic days were here to stay, week one. Now imagine 12 lanes of traffic, and I'm in a city of 6 million people, and my car is the only one on the road. It took my breath away. Not since 9/11 had I been stopped in my tracks like this. We believe the world is running because the consumerism is ticking and it never stops, but this time it stopped. And as you know, it stopped for over a year, and we've been hobbling back ever since. This opening is unique. The opening of a lifetime, if you will. And what do? How do you do life when it changes suddenly? Black Lives Matter. I didn't march. I put up a sign. Privilege. I'm privileged. Privileged to choose to stay home, not catch COVID-19. Privileged to not endure harassment from a cop, not even a Walmart employee who recently said, "Keep walking," while I exited the store, even as they questioned a black man right in front of me. Really? Are you kidding me? Do you think I don't steal because I'm white? The Music Performance Trust Fund, part of their mission statement says, we feel the urgency to continuously reflect and find better ways forward in every area of our work. And we must address the societal issues that affect the individuals and the organizations that we serve. I might add that our perceptions are limited. We must choose. How will we move forward? How do I bridge the grief of death, incivility, ignorance, violence, racism with the joys of life, musical performances, community, and connection? If I may return to the words of Bell Hooks, your heart has to be ready for the weight of calling. As a small girl, I felt the most satisfaction from music, from nature, pets, our ponds, lizards, beaches, outdoor moments with families and friends, the opportunity to relax and feel the wonder and share it with others. A pause from homework, family dynamics, and just to exhale outdoors and inhale fresh air, or to share music with friends. But the pandemic pause gave me a similar reset, a chance for reflection, small adventures to rest outdoors, travel to nearby parks with friends, and pause for conversation, exhaling, inhaling, a pause from working so much too. So in this relaxed state of mind, I can engage with you in the special now moment. I began to notice a calling. Maybe now I can make some personal changes. The pandemic pause it lasted longer than expected. Some of us thought maybe a month or two. However, this added length of time brought opportunity to look deeply at what had bothered me for so long. I'd gotten used to it, this feeling of unease. I was not going to carry this burden any longer. What's bugging me so much? Without disclosing too much, let me say that unless we can look closely at our emotions, hidden fears, unconscious bias, unrecognized anger, or you name it, what's bothering us, we will drag these paradigms into our perceptions and relationships. I was able to confront things, and I feel so much better and compassionate towards myself and others, and I've made significant positive changes. How do I care for myself? How do I my emotions and incorporate this into my daily life? Mindfulness. What's important to me? Well, I found out that kindness and resilience and compassion and strength and perspective and self-expression and wellness. And I also want to add honesty, because it's only when I'm less guarded, not trying to protect my ego, more honest, that I can more clearly see what the moment's calling for. And this is what I feel bell hooks is speaking to: the heart, my mind, and yours. Can I sit with these feelings, whatever they might be, and transform a problem into a solution? Celebration. The heart can outgrow painful memories, cleansing our perceptions in order to lead healthier lives, to serve others, our professions, and ultimately lead stronger lives. It's through mindfulness that I can better serve you and me. And that's what I want to start with today. Let's start by opening up the idea of mindfulness is a reflective moment, right? Do you agree, Faith?
Let me unmute. Yeah, well said, Penelope. I was pleasantly, and I think somewhat surprised to see so much scholarship now discussing the connection between mindfulness and musicianship. And it gave me a chance to kind of pause and think about that for myself in my own practice, right? So, thinking about what are the benefits of mindfulness in the practice of making music and performing music. As you said, the focus on the breath, in religious science and science of mind, I'm a practitioner in that practice, and meditation and contemplation are really kind of foundational tools that we use in that practice to center and align ourselves, right, with that higher calling that Penelope was referring to and referencing. And on the bandstand, when you get into that space of flow and ease, it is a transcendent space that one approaches and is engaged in. And so to me, that is a meditation and a contemplation in and of itself. And I think it's helpful, I think, for us to be able to think more intentionally about how to integrate these practices in the way to promote self-care, to handle the anxieties that come along with all the daily stressors, but also the stressors of trying to compete in a very in a competitive environment, right? Which is the music business and the business of music. Those are some of my thoughts.
Yeah, it's so true. And Aaron, please join us in this conversation.
I was just curious if you could read the bell hooks quote one more time, Penelope.
I want to do her justice. Your heart has to be ready for the weight of your calling. And for me, really the pandemic was a reset, a recommitment to creativity and to really looking at my life as an artist. I've been a musician all my life. And I've been a working musician all my life. However, with that being said, it's not a skill, and it was a choice. You know, music chose me. We hear that, and it really, I mean, it did. It has been a perfect fit for me. However, to be able to look at life creative, and the weight of my calling is to be, to endeavor to articulate these creative moments as a balm for our society, is really how I look at it. So it's not just playing like I do. That's the song I was playing earlier, but it's not just that. And I kind of clumsily did that. I'm seated sideways on this chair. But to unpack some of the music and to really bring to it, as a conductor would, some of the artistic ramifications of that. You can color the music in so many ways that it brings it to life. And as a jazz musician, not all music can be treated the same way, but that's the point. We have this freedom that's open to us. So, and this pause, this moment of, and our civilization that we paused as a world. What do you do with that? If you're not composing or reinventing your music or reinventing yourself, there's an opportunity. And so for connection, there is a need to address some of the moments that were obvious, that I called out to our attention. We're ignoring it. It's time to ignore the tap on the shoulder, to be more of yourself, to be more engaged in society, to be more engaged as a musician. So I'm not just a work for hire, I'm an artist. And I heard Raul Madón, a beautiful composer, artist at Emory University over the fall season in 2021. And he spoke to that, and it tapped me on my heart. And so it was like, you're right, to really think of yourself as a musician. And I know so much is in flux with us, all the musicians, classical and otherwise, commercial, those retired. But I'm calling us to look deeply. We do have something to offer, even through mentorship or through how can we challenge ourselves as musicians? Mentor me, for goodness. Faith, Aaron, you mentor me by your willingness to come forward in conversation. It's the art of conversation, really, right now, that is blessing us, and to not ignore the opportunities to really speak to what's being presented. In society and otherwise, artistically in our community, our extended. I'm attending ASO concerts, and I'm supporting them, and I'm supporting chamber music, and I'm being healed by that, and by the musical theater and the dances, and I'm a part of that. But it's just such a rich time. I guess that's what I want to just call out, and for that, my intention to be present and celebrate with my extended music communities, isn't that intention came from mindfulness practices. And I know we speak to the fact that, yes, we are competitively designed. There are only so many venues. However, it's also an opportunity to celebrate. And I know you do that too, Faith. You definitely celebrate the success of your peers. But this has been a challenging time for me to reflect and to bring back, what can I give? How can I serve this community?
Yeah, I think that that whole idea of intentionality around what it is that you're bringing to others. I've always felt that it's I have an obligation, I believe, in the performance of music to uplift. If I'm not doing that, I just am not honoring the gift that I've been given. And so I feel that calling, that ministry, of having that special something that special skill set to be able to transcend, because music, we know it transcends every barrier, any language. It is, mathematics in an oral capacity, and it's magic, and it permeates barriers and dissolves them. And so to be an agent of that is to me, one of the highest callings you can have. And I don't think musicians, maybe we don't always are conscious about that. That what a gift that is, even though, it's sometimes like a feast or famine situation, not always an easy road, to travel. It requires so much in terms of commitment and discipline. Sometimes, it's, very, you have less attention given to other people, other situations, because it can be so consuming. But a gift nonetheless.
Absolutely. And do you prefer to go by Faith or Ann Faith? Does it?
Yeah, you can call me anything, but Faith, okay. I prefer.
Okay, Faith. Thank you. I should have asked that earlier, Faith. I'm sorry. I was just kind of curious to know some of your own experiences with this practice of mindfulness. Mm-hmm. And obviously, as music is our medium, what are some of the practices that you use and you think others might benefit from?
Well, I definitely, as a vocalist, I'm very connected to breathing exercises, right? And the vocalists and the warm-ups and that sort of thing. And so I do incorporate the breath. I'm very attached to breathing exercises. And so I do meditate with breath meditation. I contemplate. I definitely, like in the mornings, I will read a passage, from maybe some sort of spirit. Right now I'm reading Melody Beatty, Journey to the Heart, and there's little passages for each day to give me something to contemplate as I start my day or as I end my day. And it is a practice. Let me say that I'm not always so consistent, but I'm consistent enough, I think, where I approach my life with intention, and I'm mindful about the thoughts that I'm keeping, as well as what I'm feeling, in the moment. And so I incorporate a little visualization for my, as I'm preparing for my performances, and a little meditation, contemplation, and it works for me. It calms me down. It centers me.
It may help to keep some of those negative thoughts at bay, perhaps.
Exactly. Yep.
Which it's a slippery slope, at least I find. The more I slip into those negative thoughts, the more I tend to kind of go downhill.
Yeah. That chatter.
Right, the monkey mind. And the better of us. So you mentioned earlier too about the idea of that, when we're going, when we're on the bandstand and we're using music to obviously transcend all these, well, for lack of a better word, sufferings that we endure on the day-to-day. Are there any specific, you mentioned earlier some specific ways of meditating, but specifically when you're on the bandstand and you're in that moment, Is it just does it just happen? Is there something that you think you're able to tap into, or how do you personally reach that?
Good question, because I think it's almost ethereal the way that it happens. That connection, that flow that goes on, it's an ease and a relaxation, and also the give and take on the bandstand with the whoever I'm playing with, all of that energy and the energy from the audience, and that kind of communal, all that energy just seems to, just take me to another consciousness, where I'm not as self-conscious, not as conscious of, there's some part of me that's just dissolved into something greater. I don't, it's hard to explain, but to another musician, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of leads me to maybe another similar question to this topic is, and Penelope too, for you, let's say you're not a musician and you don't have this experience of being up in front of an audience, for those, especially with all the hurt that we're feeling in our country right now. Are there any practices that non-musicians can take away from some of we as musicians, how we practice this?
I'm thinking of the word receptivity, because if I'm entering a room and in order to overcome any stage fright I may have, and I'm using that just in a general way, but any nervousness that I may have, in order to overcome that, sometimes we assert ourselves. But right now, I think we're being asked to be receptive. And so if I can continue to use that as a concept, so I enter a room and I'm just simply receptive. I'm not a wallflower, but I'm receptive in a silent way, so that I can know as a teacher, I'm entering a classroom and I'm just feeling the room. I'm just seeing where people are, or if I'm in a one-on-one situation and I'm teaching music to a student, what are they experiencing before I interject? I can simply say, of course, introductory comments, but at the same time, there's a receptivity that I have to be sensitive to in order to be as successful as I can be. It's an exchange that's going on. I'm not here to over assert. I'm here to listen to the room, work the room, So it plays out in many settings. It could play out in a boardroom. Before I assume what my board of directors is, if there's sensitive information that I'm needing to deliver, or they anticipate what's going to happen, some jobs are being people are being laid off. We certainly know that, or things are shifting in the environment. One has to be sensitive to that, and in order to become more favorably, we want to reduce the tension. So I'm not going to assert through authoritative leadership, but I'm offering cooperative languaging. So you can even language this. Some of the trauma-informed care things that are going on in education. There's a school in Savannah and even the Savannah Arts Festival is using languaging to support the youth in that area that needs support. And the ways that they can be supportive is to offer sensitivity training to their teachers, so that we all feel there's equity, and it's not equality, it's equity. You're valuable and I'm valuable. So let's look at us through those lens. In order to do that, there's some languaging that goes on. So the mindfulness and intentionality, not even mindfulness, even without the mindfulness practices, but in order to have that diversity and inclusion language, you go through the training around trauma-informed care. So we're all being asked to show up in a different way. So I look at things with curiosity instead of so much judgment, which just shuts the door on exploring some of these ideas, and just simply be curious. I'm curious. And that's the lens that I chose I was curious, some changes I needed to make in my leadership practices in order for me to be more effective. Um, I wanted to be more effective. How can I continue to grow? Can I be, um, let's see, some, we're being at, to be friends with uncertainty is what I'm really looking for. The idea of uncertainty not being an enemy, but things are so uncertain right now. Well, okay, but it's not a threat. Things are uncertain. Okay. Well, I can look at that with curiosity rather than judging. Things are really uncertain right now. Okay. Well, that's not going to work. I want to be curious. So those are tools that I my mindfulness practices to be more skillful at being sensitive to people in the room. They may, those that lost the man or woman that lost their job, or them that lost their job, it may have affected a lot of people in their family. So to be sensitive to that instead of just walking over them, with either patriarchal or white supremacist attitudes or even just supremacy, period. Simply being available for the equity that is deserved at this time in our lives. I think it's valuable to me. It's more than you asked for, but.
I don't know if Faith.
It sounds a lot. So for me, Penelope, to be present with the other, meeting the other where the other is, being comfortable with ambiguity, because things are not certain. I do feel like, again, I'm just kind of thinking back just to, the practice of music, particularly improvisation. Things are not always the same. They're going to be different. And there's a level, an aspect of ambiguity there. I also think that, I feel that people are receptive to the energy that you're giving. And I think that when you asked about how others who are not necessarily musicians might be able to kind of engage this kind of mindfulness perspective, I think that there's plenty of opportunity, as Penelope was pointing out, how we can show up for each other and be present, to open up our pathways of listening without judgment, being open to being a learner, a lifelong learner. And I don't need to be the expert, I don't want to be the expert. I have things that I can offer to you, and you have things you can offer to me, and there's a reciprocity about that.
Oh, just like what Penelope was saying earlier too, how we're all students, we're all teachers, and we all wear both hats, whether we know it or not.
Right.
And I love how you specifically stated, Faith, this being comfortable with ambiguity, which I think that's definitely something that when you are in our comfort zones, which is a lot of, I think maybe where a lot of folks exist, or even, even myself, I like sitting on the couch and chilling and watching Netflix and or whatever my comfort zone or our comfort zone is. How do we transcend that, or how with in a time where there's so much expression done in a negative way, or maybe jumping quickly to be just on a soapbox on social media, or perhaps with all the school shootings, and then this is being such a terrible thing, a negative way to express ourselves, how do we transcend that? Through music? I don't know. Is that
Well, really, I think it's important to not hide. So to have a comfortable place to go, either through, therapeutic practices, as we've suggested, meditation, contemplative reading, time with a friend, a colleague, someone to go to speak to, and share, say, I've got to have some space to grieve this or to move through this. I have some questions. I'm embarrassed. I have shame around this. Those are those are real, you know. But in the golf, I love golf. I don't play, but I watch it, and frequently you'll hear so and so's working with a psychologist. What's going on between their ears? That's what we're talking about. What's going on between my ears? We all have brains. We have an emotional brain and we have an analytical brain. So they're two brains. We have every right to investigate both sides, because we have to incorporate our emotions, energy moving through. So, I mean, that's taking this conversation in another direction, but it's a part of this. That's evaluating, how am I feeling? I don't know how am I, what do I believe? I don't know what I believe. Well, we can find out. What do I believe? How do I feel about this? And in that conversation, it's the art of conversation. Just simply have time where you feel safe, that you can unpack some of these ideas and begin to introduce yourself to mindfulness practices. I've done Tai Chi for over on a regular basis. I have a private teacher that I work with, and that has helped me. So these are not just theoretical practices. These they come into the body, and I'm able to incorporate and have these grounding tools that I use, so that when I go on stage, I'm breathing the cadence of the music. I'm breathing to feel my heart rate, so that it's rested, so that my hands don't fall off through trembling, so that I really can have a wonderful experience of being the best I can be as a musician, so that the room can feel the music as it's coming to them, and they're giving me back the reciprocity. But if I'm jangly, if I'm not grounded, then I really can't do the best job, either as a mother. I'm not a mother, but any of these relationships that I have with my partner, with you, the business person, it's all of it. We want this idea of wholeness through mindfulness practices. Meditation is a deeper engagement. It's a longer reflective time period that you give yourself 5 minutes. There are all sorts of things I use. We have our phones with us all the time, so I've in my system, in order to come here, sometimes, or traveling around the city, I incorporated the mindfulness app in my Waze. WAZE is the Waze app, to get around town, and it's kind of funny, but my great niece and nephew were saying, "What is that? What is that?" I said, "Well, I choose to be reminded. Take a breath as you're exiting the room." You know how they say these things, but I like to incorporate that, to remind myself, be mindful. It's not just something we do in the morning and at night, but it's become a habit, a way of life, so that I'm much more relaxed in the various settings that I find myself in.
You need that in the Atlanta traffic.
Oh man. Yes.
So, yeah, that's a lot of volume. That's a lot of volume pushing through the city, isn't it?
Well, and like we're talking about, not to circle back, but to bring up that original statement that Penelope gave us, reaching out, reaching in, breathing out, breathing in. The breathing out and breathing in part, to me, is us. It's ourselves, our individual breath. The reaching out, I kind of took to mean that we are reaching out to check in, to see how somebody's doing, to call a friend, to maybe write somebody who you haven't talked to in years. I don't know if either of you have anything to share or to um, include, but definitely this reaching out and in and breathing out and in, I think are something that we do as musicians, to become mindful and to, like Faith was saying, reach this transcendent state. But on a more broad spectrum, how can just anybody make things better for all of us through these practices?
Well, my neighbors during the pandemic, I got to know them by name. I know what they like to eat. We ate outdoors together. Those are moments where, again, these down times can afford opportunities to look at things differently. Say hello to the cashier. How are you doing? Ask one another. Smile. Be available. You know, if I know myself emotionally, that I'm more available for you. Again, so it's getting self-aware is the most basic of these benefits of mindfulness practices. Um, so just being available more, the friendlier we are, you know, that's the Southern hospitality that's gone away. We're more afraid of each other than we are of being friendly to each other. This practice, you know, open up, be giving, and then receiving the benefit of that giving, you know. So I really like the idea of connecting, and you, Aaron, you and I've talked about that, the importance of us connecting as a union to one another, saying, you know, how is your family doing? Musicians have a variety of lives that, you know, we don't necessarily know. We know them as professionals, but they have a whole tribe of people behind them. How's your family doing? Are you okay? And so it's a time that's uh, it's important for us to ask, how are your mom and them? You know, how's it going?
Yeah, I also, you know, think it's important for us to understand that, you know, we're human beings, we're relational beings, you know, we don't operate, or can we thrive or survive in absent of being in relation with other people, you know. And so how can we practice those kinds of things that are more life affirming for us? Joy and compassion and forgiveness, and a random act of kindness goes a long way. It makes me feel better when I can be kind to someone and extend kindness to someone. The pandemic has given us that opportunity to exhale, I think. I saw families, you know, going out together, enjoying one another, you know, cycling with one another, because there was no other choice, but just the collaboration, and seeing people, you know, becoming a lot more relational was a blessing, I think, for us. And hopefully we're learning from this experience how important that is, you know, how important the we is over the I.
It's definitely something that I personally have woken up to over the course of the pandemic, of course, is yes, there's more power in we than let's say just the individual.
And I like I've heard, this is an idea that came to me, and it's not my own idea, but to your point, that which I desire, to give that away. So if I'm desiring something, if it's a gig or a contract or relationship, a relationship or love relationship, give it away. If I'm looking for more love, give more love. If I'm looking for more work, give more work. because I live in such a positive, I forget the life affirming. I live in such a bubble of positivity
Hmm.
that I have learned these skills that have just adorned my life with goodness, that I forget, oh yeah, I'm not the man. I live a rare, a rarefied. So I forget that I love giving affirmative uh, blessings. I love blessing people because it's just who I am now. It's a way of life. And people really thrive on that. So I just invite us to look at, can we just continue to bless one another? And those are traditional words, but honor and give dignity and respect to one another
Hmm.
on a consistent basis so it becomes a way of life. Hold the door open, whatever, like you said, random acts of kindness. The car in front of you, you know, or the car behind you rather, pay for their coffee. Those kinds of acts, or pay for their, that was given to me. I was like, I said to this person, please cut in line with your car. I don't care. Go ahead. And they pay for my coffee. I love that. Kindness by all means.
Hmm. Well, and to Faith's point earlier, you were saying, Faith, how the practice of doing this with obviously sometimes it's harder to be disciplined than others, but through some sort of consistency, it becomes, maybe you can speak to that a little bit more.
Well, it's a practice, and that's why they call it a practice. That it's something that starts to become a part of your being and a part of who you are. So I can't imagine not being mindful, in my present state. I'm very grateful for that. And I also, that's another thing that I think that can help shift your energy and shift a perspective. When you think about what it is you have gratitude for, what am I grateful for in my life? That changes things around for me in in a heartbeat. And can change my attitude, as well. And so I offer that as a practice that anyone can that's at your disposal at any time. To kind of take that breath and say, what am I grateful for in this moment? What am I grateful for? It really does make a difference. I think it's also important for us to be able to have that dialogue with each other that I think Penelope was talking about earlier. Being present, listening to one another, but taking that step to be able to engage one another. And maybe there are ways that the American Federation can promote some dialogues about mindfulness and musicianship and, just in our own community.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if there's any specific things that obviously either of you, I mean, I've been so grateful for Penelope. Like, oh my gosh, getting to know her and Jackie here in the office. They've been coming in every Tuesday to play duo in the hall. And Penelope in particular has been really a godsend, because she's told me and Brian, frankly, who, we're sitting here, we're working on the paperwork and all of that stuff and membership engagement and whatnot. But she's telling us about what's going on. And she hipped us to Melvin Jones playing on the Oscars and the Grammys. And, I got to know Jackie originally through this, and Jackie doesn't talk about herself really at all. So Penelope's saying, well, hey, did you know Jackie actually played at Carnegie Hall? These kinds of things. And so I encourage, anybody that might be watching this, any member, any non-member, frankly, that wants to bring something to our attention, awesome. Like, please let us know. And the same thing goes. Actually, I might have one small suggestion. If to close today, maybe we can just go around our proverbial virtual room and say one thing that we are grateful for. Would that be okay?
You bet.
Yeah.
And then maybe if anybody's listening, you can also say what you're grateful for, and we'll give maybe 15 or 20 seconds of silence for you to say that as well.
Listen to you. You're so good.
Pause for 1 second. We got a package. Hey,
Great.
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Have a great day.
Right away. Right away, you're grateful.
The mail came.
So easy.
I'm sorry about that. Penelope, would you like to start?
Sure. I'm so grateful for this city, for the community of Atlanta. And I'm also grateful that I have a willing heart to learn and grow, and that to receive the support that I need for continued success and growth.
I guess I'll go next. So many things I'm grateful for, but I guess very grateful for life, and the capacity to be of service to others. Grateful for my family, friends, and extended family, chosen family. So grateful for Penelope, and all the wonderful, wonderful musicians that I've had the opportunity to engage here in Atlanta. Those in New York and in Buffalo, my hometown, keeping that city lifted in my consciousness. And I'm grateful, I'm just grateful for life itself, with all of the challenges that may present. I know that those challenges are transitory, and that we'll come out on the other side better and more resilient and richer.
Amazing. I'm personally grateful for both of you, Faith and Penelope, for giving your time today and to talk with us all about mindfulness and musicianship and the connections there that may exist in your own lives. And whether they do or not, that's okay, because it is a practice like we're talking about. And all it takes is what we're doing right now is just one thing we're grateful for. I'm personally also grateful for my own family, for their endless support of my pursuit of music, which is definitely not an easy career path, let's say, although it does provide a lot of joy. And on that note, I'm grateful for music. I'm grateful that there is this thing on planet Earth that we all have to enjoy and to connect us beyond, like you said earlier, Faith, beyond language and beyond culture. There's something here that exists, and it really makes us special, makes us human. So that's what I'm thankful for. And we'll just leave the room open here for 15 or 20 seconds in case you might also want to say out loud or internally what your own selves are grateful for now. Well, all right. Thank you both so much, Faith, Penelope, for being here with us all. It's been just incredible to be able to spend this time with you to talk a little bit more about mindfulness and musicianship. Penelope, would you play a little Nardis to end us today?
So it is.